Yo, what's the word? It's your boy Kha.Reality back with another one. Today, we gonna go straight into boxing ball. Yeah, boxing ball. Brownsville, Brooklyn legend, OG, whatever you want to call him. You know, he had his, I guess his claim to fame is being, Brownsville, Brooklyn goon. And he was charged with, a double body and then another body, for taking a life of Foots, another East New York Brooklyn legend or whatever. But boxing ball, he had his run-in scuffles with Maino. He's the guy responsible for cutting Maino. He has been found guilty. Yes, he has been found guilty of this double body. He has been found guilty, and now he faces the rest of his life in the penitentiary. Yep, boxing ball, found guilty. The news just broke within the last week. It was on the different platforms and stuff, but we got it here. We got word on the street to break down some things about boxing ball. If you don't know boxing ball, so just stay tuned. I hope y'all enjoy the content. We just bring it to y'all. Boxing ball has been found guilty. He was the one that dressed up like a wig and raincoat. Before Zay Osama said, I'm the type to pop up on you in a rig and raincoat. He was doing that. You know what I mean? Old school gangster, old school legend, whatever you want to call him. Brooklyn, you know what I mean? Boxing ball. He has been found guilty. He has been found guilty. So, we're going to go straight into the content. Like I said, I hope y'all enjoy. It's 050 to move.
Joy, or Boxing Bar, allegedly went on a murderous crime spree, ruthlessly killing 2 men and a woman over the course of a week. He is accused of brazenly shooting them in broad daylight. Pushing 50, the Brownsville man has been out here in the streets, and his name has came up in violent situations dating back to the 90s. Let's get right into the story. Like a lot of young guys from poverty-stricken neighborhoods, Barr was in the streets early. If you know, you know. He would be sentenced to 5 to 15 years behind bars in 1992 for assault, weapons possession and reckless endangerment. Eventually, he would go up north to serve time. Some years later, not sure if this is distinct, but I believe that while there, he would come across the Brooklyn rapper and lobby boy, Maino. They were imprisoned at Coxsackie at the time. Maino had been served with a 5 to 15 also, in connection to a kidnapping of a drug dealer when he was 16. The two, Maino and Barr, were on good accords at one point, but would get into an altercation over a shoving match. Allegedly, Maino would retrieve a razor from his cell and return to the dorm. The two would get into a fist fight, and as a guard was breaking up the fight, Maino would cut Boxing Barr. Somehow, he was able to cut him twice. There are 2 different accounts as to what happens next. Some say Maino was beat badly by Barr and others. Another account is that Barr was able to still get it on with Maino even after the officer intervened, and he got the best of Maino. Whether that's true or not, you had to be there. Besides, Maino is fighting a guy named Boxing Barr. It is what it is. Maino would end up in the box for his actions. Anyway, sometime after this, they bump into each other in Southport, where the two would speak. They were in the box, so communicated as such, without things being volatile. They wouldn't bump into one another again until they get to Comstock Prison. Barr worked at the barber shop there, and Maino happened to come get a cut. Maino, under the impression that the beef had simmered since their non-violent encounter at Southport, he sits to get a cut by one of the barbers. Barr would catch Maino lacking. He took out his razor and cut Maino, giving him a deep gash, blew him, ripped him, whatever you want to call it. It was serious stuff. Afterwards, there was commotion, and that was that. Barr would be back on the streets a few years before Maino would see the light of day. The two would bump into each other again way later down the line, but both sides differ as to the events of that situation. So around 2003, after being paroled, he was back on the street. It wasn't long before Barr's name would end up in some other business, but this time, it was a double murder involving the cousin of all-star basketball player, Stephon Marbury. After heated words were exchanged at a September 2004 birthday party in Coney Island, projects, allegedly, Barr and at least 3 other men took it outside. Among the men were Alan Lewis, 20, and Yusuf Makiti, 32, and a friend of Barr's. One story is that Makiti heard Lewis arguing with his mother. Police said it appeared that Makiti intervened and said, "Don't talk to your mother that way," which set Lewis off. Both men pulled weapons. But Marbury's cousin, Makiti, never got a chance to fire before he was killed by Lewis. Another man then picked up Makiti's gun and killed Lewis in the firefight, during which more than 30 bullets were fired. The third man, Barr, who was 31 at the time, was arrested for shooting Lewis. It was also written off by some as a gang-related dispute. As for Marbury, he had lost other cousins growing up in the Coney Island neighborhood. For one, Daryl Jenkins, then 22, was killed in 1991 in an unsolved drive-by shooting. And Omar Jenkins, 27, was gunned down in 1997 after he supposedly dissed two East New York gang members. 2 men went to jail for that killing. All 3 of the men have the same mother, Marbury's aunt. As for Barr though, he would end up being acquitted of the murder, but would return to prison on a 12 to 15-year sentence for criminal possession of a weapon. He was released on parole in October 2018. He would be home for less than 2 years before his name pops up in more violent crimes. Foot was a well-known person in Brooklyn and a curator of style. He came up in East New York but would pioneer a crew of teens called the Pimps while attending high school in Canarsie. He is known for doing graffiti, as well as having his own clothing line called Footwear. As creative as he was still entangled in the streets and had ties to certain individuals. But that was Foot for you. He's done a few interviews on different platforms. You can find him on YouTube. On a summer day in June of 2020, Foot was outside of his residence on Milford Street in East New York, washing his car, a Chrysler 300, while kneeling on the ground washing the wheels. At around 11 a.m., a man walked up behind him and shot him multiple times from point-blank range. Allegedly, this is him in the video. This was definitely personal, and the community definitely felt the death of Foot. A friend of Barr's, a 47-year-old woman, was hit with hindering and tampering raps for allegedly helping him get rid of the clothes he wore during the killing. 1 week later, he was wanted in connection to the pair of slayings on Van Cyclen Avenue near Livonia Avenue using an AR-15. It happened around 12:30 in the afternoon. A disturbing video shows the gunman running up the street before 27 rounds can be heard popping off in quick succession. The gunman, wearing a blonde wig and blue trench coat, is shown darting back down the street as screams are heard in the background. Police sources identified the victims as Chiodike Thompson, 23, and Stephanie Perkins, 39. Thompson was shot once in the face and Perkins struck once in the back as they sat on a front stoop. They were pronounced dead at the scene. Thompson and Perkins were found slumped over on the stoop with their arms around each other, a source said, with Thompson cradling Perkins' head. Authorities caught up to him on July 9 in West Virginia, where he was arrested after he barricaded himself inside a home. There is nothing else to talk about here. Barr is facing life in prison as of now.
Word on the street. I hope y'all go over there, like, share, subscribe to their content. Great content, you know what I mean? But yeah, one thing we can learn from boxing ball, man, you know, I don't even think it's like, all we can learn is like, you know, if you want to, you know, I don't even know what to say, you know what I mean? Like, you know, that life is like, once you get in jail and you keep going back and back, that's all you know what I mean? Yeah, I guess we could just learn that, you know, if you want that life, continue to do that. If you don't, just stay away from that type of stuff. But, you know, I don't know. It's crazy. He got so much time now. He's about to get so much time. It's over. Make sure you like, share, subscribe.